You'd look at our family photos and think we were picture perfect. Smiling faces, matching outfits, hugs that looked real. But those smiles, they were practiced, carefully arranged like the furniture in our living room, meant to impress, not to comfort. My name is Madison, and for most of my life, I believed that if I just tried hard enough, smiled wide enough, did everything right, then maybe I'd finally matter to my parents. But deep down, I always knew I wasn't the daughter they were proud of. That title belonged to my younger sister, Kayla, the golden girl, the one whose messy handwriting was creative, whose tantrums were passion, whose every mistake was quickly forgiven with a laugh. Meanwhile, I was the quiet one, the responsible one, the one who got straight A's, held down jobs in college, and never once asked for anything. And maybe that's why they forgot me. Or maybe they just never truly saw me to begin with. Growing up, I used to think it was just in my head, that maybe I was being dramatic. But memories don't lie. Like the time I turned 16 and baked my own birthday cake because my mom was too busy helping Kayla pick an outfit for a school dance. Or when I got accepted into my dream university and my dad barely looked up from the TV. But when Kayla passed her driver's test on the third try, they threw her a surprise party. It was always like that. Her wins were celebrated. Mine were quietly expected. I told myself it didn't matter, that success wasn't about recognition, that I didn't need applause. And for a long time, I tried to believe it. I became fiercely independent. I put myself through college, landed a solid job, paid my student loans early, bought my own car, bought my own house. But no matter how far I climbed, I always looked over my shoulder, hoping maybe this time they'd see me. Really see me. That they'd say, "We're proud of you, Madison." But that sentence never came. Not even when I handed them the keys to my $850,000 luxury home and said, "This is mine." My dad just raised an eyebrow and said, "That's nice. Did Kayla help you with the down payment?" That's when it started to hit me. I was a background character in my own family. Someone they'd invite for appearances, to fill a chair at the dinner table, to hold the camera while they smiled with her. The family that smiled in photos never really smiled for me. Kayla could crash a car and somehow walk away with a new one. That's not a metaphor. She literally totaled her first vehicle by running a red light while texting. And instead of consequences, our parents bought her a newer, flashier one to cheer her up. I remember watching from the doorway as they hugged her, wiped her tears, and told her it wasn't her fault. I had to bite my tongue so hard I tasted blood. That's how it always was with her. She didn't just get second chances, she got unlimited rewrites. Missed a test? The teacher was wrong. Got fired? The manager was jealous. Broke up with her boyfriend? He didn't deserve a queen like her. Our parents painted her world with gold and excuses, cushioning her every fall with soft pillows made of blind love and denial. Meanwhile, I was learning how to unclog my own toilet at 18, applying for scholarships, working late shifts while attending morning lectures. When I graduated college with honors, I mailed the announcement to my parents. My mom called 3 days later, not to say congratulations, but to ask if I could help Kayla prep for a job interview. She didn't even remember I had a graduation ceremony that weekend. But I kept going. I moved to a new city. I hustled, built contacts, survived rejections, and climbed the ladder until I landed a solid role in a growing firm. I saved. I sacrificed. I didn't go on vacations. I packed lunch instead of dining out. And finally, after years of quietly grinding, I stood inside my dream, a luxury home worth $850,000, all mine, fully paid. When I told my parents about it, I expected at least a flicker of pride. I sent them photos, told them how hard I'd worked. My dad texted back, "Wow, that's a big place for one person. Maybe Kayla can stay with you for a bit. She needs a fresh start." That hit me like a slap I'd been waiting for my entire life. She wasn't just the golden sister. She was the sun in their universe, and I was just orbiting quietly, hoping for warmth. I had thought maybe if I bought that house, they'd finally see me. But once again, I was only a stepping stone for her next comfort. They pampered her like she was royalty, while I worked like a servant in my own story. Kayla didn't need to work hard. She knew someone would always catch her. I envied that freedom, resented it even. But more than anything, I wanted it to be me they saw. Just once. I wanted them to acknowledge me without comparing me. Love me without using her as the standard. But when I realized even my greatest accomplishment was being sized up as a gift for Kayla's convenience, something inside me snapped. I didn't show it, not yet. But I started building something else. Not just wealth, but a way out. A quiet plan for when enough would finally mean enough. When I got the text about the family meeting, I paused for a second. It was from my mom. Let's all have dinner together this Sunday. Just family. It's been too long. A part of me softened. Maybe they were trying. Maybe this was the moment they'd finally see me as I was, an equal. I told myself to go with an open heart. I even brought a bottle of wine. The moment I walked in, though, the air felt off. Everyone was already seated around the dining table. My parents, Kayla, and her fiancé, Brandon. The smiles were there, but they were tight. Rehearsed. The kind that don't quite reach the eyes. My father clapped his hands together. There she is. Our girl with the fancy house. They laughed. I gave a small smile and sat down, brushing off the unease. Maybe I was being paranoid. Dinner started out normal, if awkward. Light conversation, some teasing. Then, slowly it shifted. Kayla sighed dramatically. So, Brandon and I are starting to look for places to live. But the market is just crazy. Mom nodded, playing her part. Everything's either tiny or way too expensive. Then came Dad. That's why our house is just ideal. Spacious. Beautiful. And already in the family. My fork froze midair. Kayla turned to me with the fakest smile I've ever seen. I know it's a lot to ask, but wouldn't it be amazing if you gifted it to us as a wedding present? I mean, you're doing so well. You don't even need all that space. I looked at her, then at my parents, waiting for someone, anyone, to say this was a joke. Silence. I laughed once, quietly. Wait, you're serious? My mother leaned in, all warm tones and gentle eyes. Sweetheart, it's not about the money. It's about love. Family. Your sister is starting a new life. It would mean so much. She's always given to you, Dad added. Is it so wrong to expect something back now that you're in a position to help? It wasn't a dinner. It was an ambush. They kept talking like it had already been decided. They spoke over me, around me, never to me. My own home, something I'd bled for, was being passed around like it was a set of old china. Kayla gave a pouty smile. We're family, right? We share. I stared at her. She hadn't worked for it. She didn't even know how many nights I'd cried trying to make ends meet. And now they wanted me to just hand it over? I swallowed the lump in my throat. My hand gripped the stem of the wine glass tighter. They didn't know it yet, but this meeting would be the last time they ever tried to guilt me into giving up what I earned. I smiled back just as fake. You're right. We are family. But in my head, something had shifted. A door had slammed shut. I took a breath. A deep, measured one. My wine glass was still in my hand, but I hadn't touched a drop. I needed clarity for what I was about to say. I'm sorry, I began slowly, but I won't be giving my house away. The table fell silent. You could hear the tick of the grandfather clock in the hallway. Kayla blinked, then laughed, short, sharp, stunned. Wait, what? I said no, I repeated, this time without apology. That house is mine. I bought it. I worked for it. And I'm not giving it to anyone. Mom's smile disappeared so fast it was like it had never existed. But sweetie, she's your sister. She needs it. No, I said, firmer now. She wants it. That's not the same thing. Dad leaned forward, voice tight. Don't be difficult. It's not like you can't buy another one. You're not exactly hurting. I didn't work this hard to become your backup plan, I snapped, heat creeping into my voice. I owe you nothing. Kayla's face darkened. You're unbelievable. I'm drawing a boundary, I said. That's not unbelievable. That's healthy. She laughed again, but there was venom behind it this time. Wow, you've really changed. Got a little money, and now you're too good for your own family. No, I said. I'm finally seeing this family clearly. The next moment unfolded like a bad dream. Selfish, Kayla muttered under her breath. Ungrateful, Mom hissed. Dad leaned back, disgust in his eyes. You're cold, you know that? Stone cold. I didn't flinch. I'd spent my life trying to be the good daughter, the reasonable one. But right now, standing up for myself was being twisted into cruelty. Then Kayla stood up. You think you're better than us now? Just because you bought a house. I think I've earned respect. That's all. She stared at me, red-faced, fists clenched, and then, in one smooth, sudden motion, picked up her untouched glass of cranberry juice and threw it in my face. The glass clattered to the floor as the cold liquid dripped from my chin, soaking my blouse and stinging my eyes. I gasped at the shock of it, but what stung more wasn't the juice. It was what followed. Nothing. Not a gasp. Not a reprimand. Not a single voice raised in protest. They just watched. No one came to my defense, not even to ask if I was okay. I slowly picked up a napkin, wiped my face. My hands are steady, my movements slow. I didn't speak. I didn't scream or cry. I looked around the table. These were the people I had tried to impress, to earn love from. People who had just watched me be humiliated and silently agreed I deserved it. That's when I knew I was done. Without a word, I pushed my chair back and stood. My heels clicked against the tile as I walked out of the dining room. Juice clinging to my clothes, heart thudding but calm. I didn't slam the door. I didn't yell. I just left. And I didn't look back, because in that moment I realized something powerful. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need to keep chasing a place at a table that was never built for me. They could keep their fake smiles, their golden child, and their twisted version of family. I had something far more valuable. Self-respect. For weeks, there was nothing. No calls. No messages. Just silence. At first, it was peaceful. The silence was a breath of fresh air. I didn't need to explain myself. Didn't need to hear my parents' disappointed voices or my sister's passive-aggressive remarks. The world outside felt simpler. I let go of the tension in my shoulders, the constant worry of being good enough. But as the days passed, the silence took on a different edge. It became a space to think, to breathe, to plan. I wasn't just going to disappear. I wasn't going to let that insult slide. No, I was going to use my absence to my advantage. They thought they'd won, that I had folded. But I knew something they didn't. Silence could be my sharpest weapon. I didn't tell anyone about my next steps. No one had earned my trust enough to be let in. Instead, I buried myself in work and figuring out exactly how I could take back control, take back everything that was mine. Every ounce of pain and humiliation that had been inflicted upon me was going to fuel this next move. The first thing I did was hire a lawyer. I found someone who specialized in property and asset protection, someone who could help me clean up the mess my family had left behind. I started the legal work of transferring key assets into my name, restructuring finances, and reworking the ownership of the house I had bought. No, it wasn't just my home anymore. It was going to be the thing that would make them realize what they'd lost when they threw me away. And that wasn't all. I had another card up my sleeve, one they'd never see coming. I pulled every legal document, every title, and every investment I had ever made. It was time to make sure that if they ever wanted to come crawling back, they'd find themselves at my mercy. I wasn't about to let them have anything without realizing that they had lost everything by mistreating me. But I didn't do it with anger. I didn't make rash decisions or seek revenge in a moment of fury. No, I did it with cold precision. Everything had to be calculated. My plan had to be flawless. I was tired of being second best, tired of being the one who was left behind. I wasn't about to give them another chance to belittle me. I didn't need them to know anything. I worked quietly behind the scenes, ensuring that everything I needed was in place for when the moment was right. As weeks passed, they must have thought I had accepted defeat. I had faded into the background, just another forgotten member of the family. No one reached out. No one cared enough to check on me. They all assumed I would come crawling back when they decided to call. But the longer I stayed silent, the more their arrogance began to grow. They didn't call. They didn't need to. They were comfortable in their belief that I had nothing without them. They were comfortable in their ignorance. I watched them all from afar, planning my next move in secret. I could almost hear their laughter, feel their smugness every time my name was brought up. They thought they had me figured out. but they had no idea what I was preparing. The silence was everything. Every second I spent in quiet, methodical planning made them more comfortable. The moment they least expected it, I would strike. They thought they could humiliate me and win. But what they didn't realize was that I wasn't the same woman I had been at that dinner. I wasn't desperate for their love anymore. I didn't need their approval. And when the time came, I was going to remind them of that. Months passed and still no one reached out. It seemed like the world had moved on without me. But deep down, I knew the truth. They were all still waiting for me to break. They were still expecting me to return to the fold, to beg for their forgiveness, or at least show up to make things right. But they had no idea that I had been quietly rewriting the script. Then one day, the idea hit me. I didn't need to chase after them anymore. I didn't need to beg for their approval. Instead, I would make them come to me. I crafted the invitation carefully. An elegant piece of paper with gold lettering and a quiet but forceful tone. It was short and to the point, just like me now. Dear family member's name, you are invited to a private event at my residence. Date, specific date. Time, specific time. Location, luxury house address. Please join me for an unforgettable experience. Regards. Your name. It was formal. It was cold. It was perfect. I sent it out to my parents and my golden sister. No one else. They were the ones who mattered. The rest of the family could stay out of it. They weren't part of my world anymore. The only ones who would be coming to this event were the ones who had made me feel worthless in the first place. The day of the event arrived and the house was prepped to perfection. The luxury house I had bought was now more than just a dream I had worked toward. It was a symbol of everything I had built without their help. The grand living room, the stunning view from the floor-to-ceiling windows, the tastefully decorated dining area, all of it was ready. But the most important thing was the air of cold silence that filled every room. It wasn't a celebration. It was a reckoning. They arrived one by one, looking as smug and self-assured as always, dressed for a grand event, expecting some sort of lavish party. The soft hum of conversation died as they stepped inside, and an unsettling stillness filled the air. They looked around, uncertain, glancing at each other, then at me, trying to decipher what was going on. No music, no welcoming smiles, just me, standing in the middle of the room, waiting. They weren't sure whether to be confused, nervous, or even angry. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. I let them soak it all in, the quiet, the tension, the uncomfortable feeling of not knowing what was going to happen next. And then, as if on cue, I motioned to the staff, who came in holding a single envelope in each hand. Without a word, they walked up to each guest and handed them an envelope, each one sealed with the same crisp, professional look. My sister's eyes flickered to me. She opened her mouth to say something, but I raised my hand, signaling for her to hold her tongue. The room went silent again. Everyone stood frozen for a moment before tearing open their envelopes. The tension was unbearable. Inside each envelope was a simple legal document, a transfer of assets, a reversal of property titles, and the confirmation of ownership. The luxury house, everything I had spent years building, was no longer just a personal achievement. It now carried legal weight. Surprised? I asked quietly, my voice cutting through the silence like a knife. This house? It's mine. And so is everything else you thought you could take from me. I watched as their faces fell, the shock, disbelief, and panic registering in their eyes. It wasn't just a house they had lost. It was everything they had taken for granted, every ounce of control, every ounce of power they thought they had over me. But I wasn't finished. The atmosphere in the room shifted, the tension growing thicker by the second. They continued to stare at the documents in their hands, but no one dared to speak. I let the silence hang there for a moment longer before I gave them the final blow. Without a word, I pressed a button on the remote control in my hand, and a screen mounted on the wall flickered to life. The room went pitch silent, save for the soft hum of the projector. A video played. On the screen, I appeared, calm, composed, and unrecognizable from the woman I had once been. This version of me was in control, fully aware of what was about to happen. "Hello, family," my voice echoed in the spacious room, calm yet chilling. "I know you must be shocked by all of this. You've always seen me as the one who would always give in, the one who would bow to your demands. But I've learned that sometimes you need to take control of your own story. And now it's my turn. I could see their faces on the other side of the room. My father's expression was one of pure disbelief, his mouth slightly open as if he had no words. My sister's face, though, was a perfect portrait of rage, struggling to understand what was happening. In the envelope you hold, I continued, you'll find proof that the house you thought was mine no longer belongs to me. I sold it. The proceeds? I donated a portion to a charity in my name. So you can't claim I did this for myself. You can't claim I did it for anything other than to break free from this cycle you created. The rest? I've used it to make sure that you'll never be able to touch my future again. There was a sharp intake of breath from my father, the realization finally dawning on him. My sister's hands were trembling as she gripped the envelope harder. I didn't need to look at them to know what was happening. They were panicking. All of the carefully constructed assumptions, all of the manipulation, all of the years of favoring my sister were coming crashing down. And now, I said, my voice steady, I've made sure that none of you will be part of my life moving forward. You are no longer included in my estate plans. Your names are gone. Your place in my future is erased. I let that sink in. Then the video switched to a clip of me, walking through the rooms of the house, each frame highlighting my journey, my blood, sweat, and tears put into everything that had once belonged to me. My message wasn't just about money or property. It was about reclaiming my dignity, my worth, and my future. Family is supposed to lift you up, I said, but you've only ever made me feel small. So now you'll see me rise. On my own terms. The video ended. The room was still. The only sound was the clinking of the glass in my father's hand, which had shaken slightly as his grip loosened. I could feel their eyes on me, my sister's angry stare, my father's defeated one, but I wasn't moved. I had done what I needed to do. I had freed myself from the expectations, the manipulation, and the control. I walked to the door and paused before leaving, turning back to face them one last time. Enjoy the panic, I said softly. It's the last thing you'll get from me. With that, I turned and left the room. The weight of the silence behind me was deafening, but this time it was on my terms. This time, I was the one who held all the power. As I walked out of that room, there was no anger in me, only a calm sense of relief, a weight lifting from my chest that I hadn't even realized had been there. For years, I had been walking around in a fog, not knowing how much of myself I was giving away to people who never truly valued me. The final pieces of the puzzle had clicked into place, and suddenly, the chaos of the past didn't matter anymore. I had spent so much of my life trying to prove myself, to earn approval, to win affection, to be worthy of love from people who would never truly see me for who I was. But now, standing at the threshold of my new life, I realized I had already proven everything I needed to myself. I didn't need their validation to be successful. I didn't need their applause to feel valuable. The peace I felt now in this quiet, beautiful home in a new city was beyond anything I had ever imagined. The house was a reflection of everything I had built for myself. Every step, every late night, every sacrifice I had made to get here. As I wandered through the rooms, the echoes of my past seemed so distant, like whispers from another lifetime. The stark contrast between the old life and the new was jarring. In the old house, I had been suffocated by expectations, by favoritism, by the weight of living in someone else's shadow. But here, in this new place, I felt like I could finally breathe. The walls were adorned with memories I had chosen, not the forced moments of family gatherings where I had always been second best. I had real friends now, not people who had been tied to me by blood, but by shared values and genuine affection. These friends were the ones who had supported me when I felt small, who had celebrated my victories, and who never asked me to sacrifice who I was for the sake of their approval. I walked into the living room and sat down on the couch, a soft sigh escaping my lips as I leaned back. It felt like I could finally exhale fully for the first time in years. In the past, I would have been angry, furious even, at how they had treated me, at how they had thrown words at me like daggers, and at how my worth had been measured by everything other than my heart. But now I just felt free. There was no bitterness in me, no resentment. It had all been washed away with the clarity of the decision I had made to walk away. The truth was simple. I didn't need their love to be whole. I didn't need their approval to be successful. I had everything I needed, and it wasn't because of them, it was because of me. As I looked out the window, watching the sun dip below the horizon, I felt a wave of calm wash over me. There was no longer any anger or fear, just peace. I had let go of the people who never saw me for who I was. I had released the weight they had put on my shoulders. I smiled softly, a quiet pride swelling in my chest. "I'm not heartless," I said to myself, but somehow I knew these words would be heard by the universe. I just finally gave my heart to people who deserved it. The city lights twinkled outside as I stood up and walked to the kitchen, knowing that no matter where life took me from here, I was no longer bound to a past that never truly accepted me. I had found my place in the world, a place where I was free to be myself. No apologies, no regrets, and no strings attached. The journey wasn't easy, but now I could look back and smile, knowing it had been worth every step.